I analyzed 500 alopecia Reddit posts and 10 questions kept appearing, but nobody's giving straight answers. So today, I'm answering all of them. No sugarcoating, no maybes, just the clearest picture I can give you from the research, the community, and the science. All right, let's get to it. So here's the first question. Does alopecia ever just go away on its own? This is the single most hopeful question across both alopecia subreddits. And the user elderberry number 1376 asked this outright. The short answer is yes, it can, especially with small isolated patches. About 50% of people with mild alopecia areata see regrowth within about a year without treatment. But the more extensive the loss, the younger the onset, the lower the odds are for full spontaneous recovery. For alopecia totalis or universalis, spontaneous full regrowth is rare. Not impossible, but it's rare. And the hard truth, there's no reliable way to predict who recovers and who doesn't. Your body can surprise you, but planning around surprises is not a strategy. That answer leads directly to the question that had 59 comments and more frustration than any other post I found. Why is this happening to me? The user AddClassic1240 posted this and it exploded. 59 comments because everyone feels this. Alopecia areata is autoimmune. That means your autoimmune system misidentifies hair follicles as a threat and it attacks them. But autoimmune is the what, not the why. And this is where the frustration lives. There's lots of confusion around the triggers. Is it acute stressful events? Is it a viral infection? Is it hormonal shifts and genetic predispositions, for example? But most people never get a clean answer. It's usually a combination. The genetic piece, if you carry certain HLA variants, your threshold for triggering AA is lower. But let me tell you a story of how I put together the pieces of my alopecia areata. So when I was about 5 years old, my parents got a divorce. Okay. And my father, he moved on, he got remarried, and he had other kids. So there was a gap in my life where I wasn't really speaking to my dad. I was upset about the whole situation and he wasn't involved in my life. But as I gotten older, I realized how important it is to forgive your parents, right? Because biblically, the Bible says, obey your mother and father. It didn't have any if, ands, or buts around that. So following what God's order, I reconnected with my dad around 23 years old. And when I reconnected with my dad and told him about alopecia, he wasn't shocked about it. He knew that it existed in our bloodline. In fact, he told me one of my younger sisters had alopecia areata. And when I met her in person, she looked just like me. Could have alopecia universalis. And as I learned about my family history, he told me that his grandparents' siblings, so that'll be like my great great uncle, had alopecia as well, had alopecia universalis as well. So it skipped a few generations and it landed on my sister and I. So that is what led me to understand how I got alopecia and how it was genetic in my case. So if you've been blaming yourself saying that it's stress related or it's diet or it's something you did, just stay with me because question 4 is where it's going to address this directly. You didn't cause this. Your immune system misfired. And this is not your fault. Alopecia is not your fault. Okay. Once you understand that the immune system is involved, the next question becomes, what else is it doing? Is alopecia connected to other conditions? The user Meadow Snow asked about migraines, and another user Meadowtroll125 flagged other autoimmune overlap. The answer is yes. Alopecia areata clusters with other autoimmune conditions at a higher rate than the general population. The most common links is thyroid disease, vitiligo, atopic dermatitis, and lupus. Migraines aren't classically autoimmune, but neuroinflammation research is drawing new connections. This doesn't mean you'll develop everything. It means your autoimmune system runs hotter than average. It may be worth it for you to ask your doctor to do a full thyroid panel, vitamin D, ferritin, AMA screening, not because they'll cure your hair, but because they'll map your autoimmune landscape. Alopecia is really the only conversation your immune system is having. Personally, I have an underactive thyroid and I take medication for it. I'm pretty sure that led to my AA. If the immune system is the engine behind all of this, can you cool it down without medication? All right, so here's the next question. Can diet, stress reduction, or natural remedies reverse alopecia? This was the most polarized debate across both subreddits. The user Real D Paul and Number March 8216 were on opposite sides, but let's separate the claims. Some people believe that anti-inflammatory diets, gut health protocols, rosemary oil, stress management, and different supplements can help reverse AA. But the evidence for diet alone reversing established alopecia areata was weak. There were no controlled trials showing reversal. But reducing systemic inflammation through diet and stress management can support treatment and overall immune regulation, according to the research. All right. And rosemary oil had some evidence for andronic alopecia and very little autoimmune areata specifically. Okay. But gut microbiome research is genuinely promising because it's still in the early stages, but we're not at the stage where we can say, take probiotics and regrow your hair tomorrow yet. The honest framing is natural approaches are best understood as complementary, not alternatives. Eat well, manage stress, and sleep, not because it'll cure your alopecia, but because your autoimmune system fight cleaner when you do. Now we shift gears because a lot of people in the threads was not feeling the natural route. They want to see what medication can actually do. Hey, before we get into JAK inhibitors, if you're watching this and thinking, finally, someone is just saying it straight up, that's exactly why this channel exists. Every video here is built from real community questions, real research, and zero fluff. If you want to see more like this, breakdowns that actually respect your intelligence, subscribing is the fastest way to make sure you don't miss them. No pressure, no gimmicks. Just hit subscribe if this is useful to you. Now, let's get back to the video and let's hear about how drugs is changing the entire treatment landscape. JAK inhibitors, how long do they take and are they safe? Combining two of the biggest questions. User Beautiful Court 7161 asking about timelines and Striking Lock 2448 asking about safety. The two FDA approved options right now are Illuminant and Litfolio. The timeline reality is that most clinical trial data shows an initial regrowth of 3 to 6 months with meaningful cosmetic improvements closer to the 9 to 12 month mark. The trial data shows about 35 to 40% of patients hit significant regrowth benchmarks at 36 weeks, so not everyone is responding to the treatment. That means that the majority see some improvement, but not a full head of hair in 3 months. Is the exception, not the rule. As far as safety, the most common side effects are upper respiratory infections, acne, headaches, elevated cholesterol, and elevated CPK. The serious concerns is the FDA box warnings, which carried over from the rheumatology cases. It warns of cardiovascular events, thrombosis, but risks were established in the older population, not rheumatoid arthritis, not the younger AA demographic. I want you to really hear the next part because it is the single most common misconception I found across both subreddits. Your dermatologist should be running regular blood work. If they're not, just ask for it because JAK inhibitors are not the magic pill. They're a powerful tool with a real cost-benefit conversation attached to it. So they can work, but what happens when you stop taking them? That's the real question. Will my hair fall out again if I stop medication? User Alex BZN and ASZ1257 both ask the same painful question. The honest answer from the data, in most cases, yes. Hair loss tends to reoccur after discontinuation. JAK inhibitors suppress the immune attack. They don't reprogram it. Some people maintain partial regrowth for months after stopping. Others see rapid shedding within weeks. There are anecdotal reports of sustained remission after stopping, but no reliable predicator for who gets that outcome. This is the biggest psychological burden in every thread that I read. The idea that treatment might be indefinite. The hardest part isn't starting medication, it's accepting it might never have an end date. And I'm going to tell you a story of a person that I met actually when I was at the walk, the NAF walk in last September. Depending on when you're watching this video, it was in 2025. I met Nina. Nina is part of the advocacy team, the NAF advocacy team with me. And when I met her for the first time, she had a full head of hair. So I can tell, I didn't think in any way that she's experienced alopecia in the past. So after hearing about her story, she said when she was a kid, she had alopecia. She took medication. And after taking the medication, she never had alopecia again. And that led her to her career of being into pharmaceutical sales. So now she sell JAK inhibitor treatments to patients because she believes in it so much because it basically cured her. You know, it healed her from it. So while this research shows that a lot of people after taking JAK inhibitors and when they get off of the medication, they tend to go back and the hair loss begins to happen again. In her case, you call it a miracle, but she didn't experience that. She took the medication and she never had to go back on it. Her hair fully regrowed, and you can never told that she had alopecia. And this leads to a question that's less medical and more logistical, but just as urgent for thousands of people. How do I access JAK inhibitors if it's not in my country? User WesternCap 8840 asked this, and the comments were full of people in the same situation. There are 2 JAKs supported and approved in the US and part of Europe, but the availability around the globe is uneven. People are using medical tourism to Turkey, India, international pharmacy services, compassionate use programs, and clinical trials. The cost in the US without insurance is roughly $2,500 to $5,000 per month. And amidst manufacturer copay programs can bring it under $50 for qualified patients. Outside the US, you have generic botulinum and its availability in India and some parts of Southeast Asia countries at a fraction of the cost. And its clinical trials are still actively recruiting at clinicaltrials.gov is the first place to check. But I'm not supporting or endorsing any specific route, but I'm saying access gap is a real deal and it deserves honest conversation. The science exists. The problem is that geography and income still decide who gets to use it. Now, let's move to 2 questions that are deeply personal, starting with one that trips up almost everyone early on. Is this regrowth or still breaking and falling? The user Turbano111 and sharp_database 6616 both posted photos asking the same question. The key sign of regrowth is fine, soft, often unpigmented or white hairs appearing in smooth patches. The key sign of active loss is examining point hairs with short, tapered at the base, narrow near the scalp, and a positive pull test. If you gently pull or tug at the hair, and if it comes out, that means that the patch is still active. While regrowth is normal, pigment often returns later as the hair thickens through subsequent cycles. If you see thin, white, fuzzy, and exclamation point hairs in the same time, both processes can happen simultaneously. So regrowth whispers before it shouts. Learn what whisper looks like. Screenshot that last line because 6 months from now, when you see those tiny hairs growing back, you'll want to remember this moment. And finally, the question that almost every person I saw hit them harder than when they lost the hair in their head. My eyebrows and eyelashes are falling out. What can I do? The users Sweet Yarrow and College Infinite 8023 and dozens more in the comments asked the same question. This is where the psychological impact peaks. Eyebrows and eyelashes define facial expressions and identity in ways scalp hair doesn't. Treatment options like JAK inhibitors can help, and clinical data for Litfulio specifically show that eyebrows and eyelashes improvements in a subset of patients. Topical options like Lasset has some off-label use for lashes and AA, but results are inconsistent. There are cosmetic solutions that people in the community swear by, like microblading for eyebrows, magnetic lashes, brow pencils, and different designs for sparse and absent brows. Most people were emotionally discussing their eyebrows. Multiple posts describe this as the moment alopecia became visible to everyone, and that deserves acknowledgement, not dismissal. I remember when I was going through my alopecia transformation from alopecia totalis to alopecia universalis, and part of my eyebrows started falling out. I was wearing do-rags above my eyebrows, and when that happened, I started wearing my eyebrows below to cover my eyebrows so that way I can completely hide the loss. I mean, luckily for me, at the time, Mace and Beta, if you know Mace from Harlem, he's a rapper, and Jay-Z were doing that as well. They were doing it for as a style and as a trend. I was doing it to hide, and I use a do-rag to hide. But for a lot of people, that's not the case, especially nowadays, where when your eyebrows fall out, I mean, you can't hide it anymore. And you can't express yourself the same way as you would have before when you had eyebrows. So losing your eyebrows doesn't really change who you are, but it does change how you would need to see your face. And that's grief is real. I went through it personally. I started this video by telling you that nobody was giving straight answers to these 10 questions. And I hope this changed that even a little bit for you. Here's what I want you to walk away with. Alopecia is unpredictable, but you are not powerless and you're not alone in this. If that landed for you, subscribe, because every video on this channel is built the same way. From real questions, real people are asking. Hit like so that this reaches someone who's sitting in the bathroom right now, pulling at that patch, wondering if the hair is ever going to regrow. And if you know someone going through this, be sure to send them this video. It might be the first time someone is answering the question without hedging every sentence. Next week, I'll post a similar video, so make sure you subscribe for that one. Thank you for watching. Take care of yourself. I'll see you in the next video. God bless.